She entered the wrong hotel room and slept next to the cold-hearted millionaire who forgot how to love. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is now. Subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The presidential suite of the Grand Reverie Hotel shimmered under soft golden lights, its marble floors reflecting the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Lucas Reed stood at the edge of the room, a glass of bourbon in hand, staring at the twinkling lights of the world he'd built. At 42, he was the untouchable CEO of a luxury hotel chain. But tonight, the silence felt heavier than success. His cufflinks glinted as he adjusted them, a nervous tick, his green eyes shadowed with the kind of exhaustion that wealth couldn't cure. He wore a tailored suit, its navy hue muted, a reflection of his need for control. The door clicked open. Lucas turned, his body tensing. A young woman stumbled in, her auburn hair a mess, her sweater slipping off one shoulder. She was drunk, her hazel eyes glassy as she clutched the wall for balance. "Oh, this isn't my room," she slurred, her voice a mix of embarrassment and defiance. Her locket caught the light, swinging as she swayed. "Get out," Lucas said, his tone sharp, a reflex. He set the glass down with a clink, his hands retreating to his pockets. But she didn't move. She blinked at him, her gaze unfocused, then laughed, a small broken sound that caught him off guard. I can't," she said, sliding down the wall to the floor, her jeans scuffing the pristine marble. "I think I'm going to be sick." Her head tilted back, exposing the pale curve of her throat, and Lucas saw the rawness in her, something he recognized too well. Vulnerability, the kind he'd spent years burying. He should have called security, should have had her escorted out. But something in her fractured voice reminded him of the days he'd needed someone to reach out, days when no one had. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his polished shoes silent on the marble, and crouched in front of her. "Look at me," he said, softer this time. Her eyes met his, wide and searching, and for a moment, the room felt smaller. "I'm Emily," she mumbled, her fingers fumbling with her sweater. I didn't mean to." She hiccuped, then laughed again, the sound turning into a sob. Lucas's jaw tightened. He'd seen enough heartbreak to know it wasn't just the alcohol talking. "Stay there," he said, standing. He grabbed a bottle of water from the minibar, the glass cold against his palm, and handed it to her. She took it with trembling hands, her gaze flickering to his face, then away. "Drink?" Slowly. She nodded, sipping as if it were a lifeline. Lucas watched her, his mind racing. He didn't do this. Didn't let strangers into his space, his life. Not after Vanessa. Not after the betrayal that had gutted him, left him hollow. She hadn't just taken his trust. She'd stolen the joy he once experienced standing at the helm of this hotel empire. But Emily's presence, messy and uninvited, stirred something he couldn't name. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice low, almost a challenge. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, smudging her mascara. "Got dumped," she said, her words slurring less now. Thought I'd drink until I forgot his name." She looked up at him, her eyes clearer, sharper. "Why are you here? You look lonelier than me." Lucas flinched, the words hitting harder than they should have. He experienced it like a punch. He turned away, adjusting his cufflinks again, the metal cool against his fingers. "This is my suite," he said, dodging her question. But her words lingered, a subtle accusation he couldn't shake. She nodded as if his answer was enough, and leaned her head back against the wall. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the city outside. Lucas glanced at her, expecting her to say more, to push. But she didn't. Her eyes fluttered shut, her breathing evening out, and in her sleep she murmured a name. Thomas Carter. The name hit Lucas like a jolt. Thomas Carter. A faint memory surfaced. His grandfather's voice. A story of a man who'd saved his life decades ago. Lucas stared at Emily, her face soft in sleep, and the pieces clicked into place. She wasn't just a stranger. She was tied to his past, to a debt he sensed the weight of, one he'd never known he owed. Morning light sliced through the suite's windows, painting the marble floor in shades of gold. Lucas sat at the glass dining table, a black coffee steaming in front of him, his suit crisp despite the sleepless night. He'd barely moved since Emily's murmured words, Thomas Carter, had jolted him awake. He watched her, still curled on the plush sofa where he'd moved her, a throw blanket draped over her small frame. Her auburn hair spilled across the cushion, her face peaceful in sleep. Emily stirred, her eyes blinking open, confusion clouding her face. She sat up too fast, clutching her head with a groan. "Oh God," she muttered, her voice hoarse. "Where?" Her gaze landed on Lucas, and her cheeks flushed. "You. Right. I'm so sorry." "Coffee?" Lucas asked, his tone even, pushing a second mug across the table. He leaned back, his frame rigid, as if the offer cost him something. She nodded, sliding off the sofa, her sweater wrinkled, jeans scuffed. She moved like someone expecting to be thrown out, her steps tentative as she sat across from him. "Thanks," she said, wrapping her hands around the mug, the heat grounding her. She glanced at him, then away, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. "I didn't mean to, crash your night." "I'll go." "Stay," Lucas said, the words slipping out before he could stop it. He shifted, his tension easing slightly, his hands resting on the table. "You're in no shape to go anywhere." Emily's lips parted, surprise flashing in her eyes, but she nodded. "Okay, thanks." She sipped the coffee, the silence stretching taut between them. Lucas watched her, his mind still on Thomas Carter. The name had haunted him all night, pulling at threads of memory he hadn't touched in years. His eyes drifted to the wall behind her, where a black and white photo hung, a piece of the hotel's history. His grandfather, William Reed, stood beside a younger man, both smiling, the Grand Reverie's grand opening banner in the background. The plaque beneath read, "William Reed and Thomas Carter, 1975. Lucas's chest tightened. A blend of guilt and reverence surged within him. For years, he'd built this empire without knowing the man who'd ensured its existence. Thomas Carter had saved his grandfather's life, pulled him from a car wreck, risked his own to do it. A story Lucas had heard as a boy, one he'd forgotten until now. His grandfather had been his hero, a man whose stories of grit and kindness had shaped Lucas's dreams. Dreams he'd buried after Vanessa's betrayal. He realized his grandfather's legacy wasn't just in the gleaming walls of this hotel, but in the gratitude owed to a man who'd sacrificed for him. A man Lucas had never had the chance to thank. Emily followed his focus, her eyes narrowing at the photo. "That's my dad," she said, her voice soft, a quiver in it. She stood, moving closer, her fingers hovering over the glass frame. "Thomas Carter. He worked here forever. Loved this place." She laughed, a small, broken sound, and Lucas saw the grief in her, raw, unhealed. "He was a good man," Lucas said, the words careful, testing. He stayed seated, his hands clasped on the table, but his mind raced. He'd always run the hotel with a cold efficiency, issuing orders without warmth, a stark contrast to the way Thomas had once nurtured his staff. Emily didn't know the full story, didn't know her father's heroism had shaped the Reed legacy, had saved the man who'd built this empire. Lucas had never known Thomas personally, but now, looking at Emily, he sensed the weight of that debt. "He was," Emily said, her voice cracking. She turned back to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "He died 5 years ago. Cancer. I miss him every day." She sat down hard, her hands trembling around the mug. "Sorry, I don't even know you." "Lucas," he said, his name a gentle offering. He leaned forward, just slightly, his walls shifting further. "I'm sorry, about your father." She nodded, wiping her eyes with her sleeve, smudging yesterday's mascara. "Thanks. He'd hate seeing me like this. Drunk, a mess. I got dumped last night. My ex, he wasn't worth the tears, but here I am." She laughed again, the sound fragile, and Lucas experienced it like a punch. He knew that kind of pain, the kind that made you reckless, made you forget who you were. "I get it," he said, his voice low, the admission raw. He didn't elaborate, couldn't. Not about Vanessa, not about the betrayal that had hollowed him out. But Emily looked at him, really looked, and for a moment they saw each other. Two broken people, sitting in a room too big for their loneliness. She tilted her head, a small gesture, her eyes searching his. "You don't seem like the kind of guy who lets random drunks crash in his suite," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Why'd you let me stay?" Lucas didn't answer. He couldn't. Not when the truth was in the photo on the wall, in the name she'd whispered in her sleep. Thomas Carter's daughter sat across from him, a subtle force pulling him toward a debt he'd never known he carried, until now. The suite's air felt thicker now, the morning sun climbing higher, casting sharp shadows across the glass table. Emily sat with her coffee, her gaze darting between Lucas and the photo of her father on the wall. Her fingers fidgeted with her sleeve, a restless motion, while Lucas stayed still, his hands gripping each other tightly, his suit a shield against the vulnerability creeping in. He hadn't expected this. Her, here, a living echo of a past he'd buried. "You loved him a lot," Lucas said, his voice low, breaking the silence. He nodded toward the photo, his eyes steady but guarded. Emily's expression softened, a trace of pain crossing her face. "Yeah," she said, her voice small. "He was everything. Worked here his whole life. Always said this place was magic, bringing people together, giving them a moment to feel safe. A magic born from moments like the one that brought his grandfather and Thomas together. A legacy of connection that Lucas was only now beginning to understand." She laughed, a quick, bitter sound, and shook her head. "Guess I needed that last night. Safety." Lucas's shoulders tensed. Her words hit too close, stirring memories of his own need for safety, something he hadn't felt since Vanessa's betrayal. He leaned back, putting distance between them. "This place has a way of doing that," he said, his tone clipped, dodging her unspoken question about his own loneliness. Emily tilted her head, studying him. "You don't talk much, do you?" she said, her voice lighter now, teasing almost. She sipped her coffee, her hands steadier, but her eyes held a sharpness that made Lucas shift in his seat. "I mean, you're sitting here with a random mess like me, and you barely say a word. What's your deal?" "My deal," Lucas repeated, his tone dry, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. He didn't answer right away, his thoughts flashing to Vanessa, her laugh, her lies, the way she'd stolen more than money when she left. He pushed the thought down, hard. "I run this hotel. That's my deal." Emily raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "Sure, but you didn't have to let me stay. You could have kicked me out. Why didn't you?" Her question hung in the air, direct, unyielding. She leaned forward, her elbows on the table, her posture open. Lucas looked away, his eyes settling on the city skyline beyond the windows. The truth pressed against him, the debt he owed her father, the memory of Thomas Carter's sacrifice. But he couldn't say it, not yet. "You needed help," he said instead, his voice low, the words simpler than the storm inside him. "I don't turn people away who need help." Emily's expression shifted, a mix of surprise flashing across her face, something like gratitude. She sat back, her hands wrapping around the mug again. "That's, kind of you," she said, her voice quieter now. "My dad would have liked that. He was always helping people. Said it was the best part of working here, making someone's day better, even just a little." Lucas's chest tightened at her words. His eyes drifted to the wall, where the photo of Thomas Carter hung, standing beside his grandfather, a man who'd risked everything to save another. And now here was Emily, carrying her father's kindness, his goodness, in every word she spoke. Lucas hadn't known Thomas, but in that moment, he sensed the man's presence, a gentle force tying him to the stranger across the table. "He sounds like he left a legacy," Lucas said, his voice softer, the words careful. He met her gaze, and for a moment, they held it. Two people seeing more than they were ready to admit. Emily's face shimmered with emotion, a tear slipping free, but she smiled, quick and real. "He did," she said, wiping her cheek with her sleeve. "I just wish I could live up to it. He wanted me to do something big, you know? Make a difference. But I don't even know where to start." She paused, her voice dropping. "My ex. He made me feel like I wasn't enough. Like I'd never be enough." She remembered Ethan's voice, sharp and cold. "You're too clingy, Em. I need space." Space had turned into another woman, leaving Emily to pick up the pieces of her self-worth. She'd let that pain turn her into a shadow, but now talking to Lucas, she realized she didn't want to be a victim of those words anymore. She laughed again, the sound fragile, and looked down at her coffee. "Sorry, you don't need my sob story." But sitting here, with Lucas listening, she felt a spark of something new. Anger, maybe, or defiance. She was tired of feeling small. Lucas didn't respond right away. He realized that sometimes listening was the best way to heal, a lesson he hadn't applied to himself since Vanessa. Her words reshaped something in him, a shift so subtle he almost missed it. She wasn't just a stranger who'd stumbled into his suite. She was Thomas Carter's daughter, a living link to the man who'd saved his grandfather, who'd shaped the very foundation of this hotel. And she was here, broken but trying, carrying a legacy Lucas perceived the weight of, a subtle turning point he hadn't seen coming. The suite buzzed with the weight of Emily's words, her confession about her father's legacy hanging in the air. Lucas sat across from her, his eyes tracing the lines of her face, her auburn hair catching the midday light. her sweater a soft contrast to the room's sharp edges. He sensed the weight of Thomas Carter's legacy, a debt he couldn't ignore. He couldn't let her leave, not yet. "You don't have to go," Lucas said, his voice low, the words slipping out faster than he intended. Emily looked up, her eyes wide, a trace of surprise crossing her face. "Stay another day. Get your bearings." He leaned back, his suit creasing slightly, a barrier against the vulnerability of his offer. Emily blinked, her fingers brushing the locket at her neck, a sign of her anxiety. You don't even know me," she said, her voice soft but edged with curiosity. She tilted her head, her expression brightening. "Why are you being so nice?" Lucas didn't answer right away. The truth, her father's history with his grandfather, was too heavy, too raw. Instead, he stood, his movements precise, and gestured toward the windows. "You said you needed safety. This place can give you that. One more day." His tone was firm, but his gaze softened, just for a moment, as their eyes met. Emily hesitated, then nodded, her expression softening. "Okay, one more day." She stood, smoothing her wrinkled sweater, her posture lighter now. "But I'm not sitting in here all day. You've got a whole hotel out there. Show me around?" Lucas raised an eyebrow, a spark of amusement breaking through his stoic mask. "You want a tour?" he asked, his voice dry, but he was already moving toward the door, his steps silent on the marble. Emily followed, her steps quick, her energy a stark contrast to his measured pace. They stepped into the Grand Reverie's grand lobby, a cathedral of glass and elegance, light dancing across the walls. Emily's eyes lit up, her gaze darting from the sweeping staircase to the vintage concierge desk her father had once stood behind. "Dad loved this place," she said, her voice bright, almost childlike. "He'd tell me stories about the guests, their secrets, their dreams, said every room held a story." Lucas watched her, his guard slipping as her words painted a picture of Thomas Carter, a man he'd never known but now felt acutely. "He saw the best in people," Lucas said, his tone quieter now, the words a bridge between them. "Not everyone can do that." Emily glanced at him, her expression softening. "Yeah, he did." She paused by a fountain in the courtyard, the water catching the light as it fell. "What about you? What's your story, Lucas? You don't strike me as the best in people type." He smirked, a rare crack in his armor, but his expression darkened. "I'm not," he said, his voice clipped. He turned away, his fingers flexing with a restless tension, his eyes settling on a group of staff bustling nearby, their uniforms crisp, their movements efficient. They worked seamlessly under his direction, but he knew they feared his disapproval more than they respected him, a realization that hit harder than he expected. "I build things. I don't trust people to fill them." The words were sharp, a reflex, but they carried the weight of Vanessa's betrayal, the theft, the lies, the way she'd left him hollow. Emily didn't push. She nodded, her hands fidgeting, and they walked on, the hotel unfolding around them, its gardens, its hidden alcoves, its history whispering in every corner. They shared small stories as they went, their voices low, tentative. Lucas told her about the hotel's first guest, a reclusive poet. Emily shared how her father once snuck her into the ballroom to dance under the lights. Her voice brimmed with pride and love, an emotion Lucas had forgotten since Vanessa's departure, and he realized how much he longed to feel that again. She spoke with a subtle confidence, the kind that could inspire others, a trait Lucas hadn't noticed until now. For the first time in years, a flicker of warmth stirred within him, a connection he hadn't realized he craved. Those small stories, though fleeting memories, reminded him that connection didn't always lead to pain. Sometimes it could be a light in the darkness. But the moment shattered when his phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with his assistant's name. Lucas answered, his tone shifting to steel. "What?" he snapped, stepping away from Emily. His assistant, Clara, a no-nonsense woman who'd been with him since Vanessa's betrayal, hesitated on the line. "You don't have to go, Mr. Reed. I can handle it." Clara sighed on the other end, her tone softening with a rare concern. She'd watched him isolate himself year after year, always hoping he'd find a reason to open up again. But Lucas cut her off. He couldn't hide forever. Tonight's high-profile gala loomed, and Vanessa would be there, with her lover, the man she'd left him for. Lucas's jaw clenched, his hand tightening around the phone. He ended the call, his body tense, the glow gone. Emily watched him, her eyes sharp, catching the shift. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. She stepped closer, her hand hovering near his arm, not touching. Lucas met her gaze, his expression stormy. "There's an event tonight," he said, his voice low, clipped. "I have to go, and someone I'd rather not see will be there." He didn't elaborate, but Emily's expression shifted, a steady anchor in his storm. She straightened, her look flashing with a resolve she hadn't felt in months. If she couldn't fight for herself, she'd fight for him. "I'll go with you," she said, her tone steady, her words tying her to his upcoming confrontation in a way neither had expected. The Grand Reverie's ballroom glowed under crystal chandeliers, the air thick with the hum of high society. Clinking glasses, murmured laughter, the rustle of silk gowns. Lucas stood at the edge of the crowd, his navy suit impeccable, his posture rigid. His hands stayed in his pockets, a shield against the world, but his expression hardened, betraying the storm inside. Beside him, Emily smoothed the simple black dress she'd borrowed from the hotel's boutique, her auburn hair pulled back, her posture firm despite the nervous flutter in her chest. Her resolve from earlier, the spark of defiance, burned steady now. She remembered the sting of being belittled by Ethan, but she wasn't that person anymore. Standing here, she felt a strength she hadn't known she possessed. "You okay?" Emily asked, her voice low, cutting through the chatter. She tilted her head, studying him, her hands clasped in front of her. Lucas didn't meet her eyes, his focus locked on the far side of the room where Vanessa stood, her blonde hair cascading over a red gown, her laugh sharp as glass. Her lover, Damien, a smug financier in a tailored tux, whose sharp eyes matched his cutting smirk, whispered in her ear, their intimacy a public dagger. "Fine," Lucas said, his tone clipped. A lie. He adjusted his cufflinks, the metal cold under his fingers, and took a step forward, the crowd parting for him. Emily followed, her presence a steady anchor he didn't want to admit he needed. They moved through the room, the weight of eyes on them. Lucas Reed, the untouchable CEO, with an unknown woman at his side. Whispers trailed them, but Lucas didn't care. Not until Vanessa turned, her blue eyes locking onto his, a smirk curling her lips. "Lucas," Vanessa purred, her voice dripping with mockery as she approached, Damien trailing behind. "Didn't expect to see you here, alone as usual?" Her eyes flicked to Emily, dismissive, then back to Lucas. "Still licking your wounds, I see. Pathetic." Damien chuckled, a low, cruel sound, and the crowd around them quieted, sensing the tension. Lucas's hands clenched in his pockets, his face a mask of steel, but the words cut deep. The old humiliation surged within him, the betrayal, the theft, the way Vanessa had left him broken, a shell of the man he'd been. He opened his mouth to respond, but Emily stepped forward, her small frame suddenly commanding, her hazel eyes blazing. She knew the pain of being belittled, of being hurt, and she resolved not to let someone else endure it, especially not Lucas, who'd given her a safe haven when she needed it most. "Actually," Emily said, her voice clear, steady, cutting through the murmurs, "he's not alone." She slipped her hand into Lucas's, her touch warm, grounding. His breath caught, but he didn't pull away. He felt the eyes of the crowd on them, a scrutiny he'd always avoided, but her hand in his seemed like a lifeline. Emily's expression turned sharp and unwavering, and she turned to Vanessa. "I'm Emily, his fiancée, and you must be Vanessa. I've heard a lot about you." The crowd gasped, a ripple of shock spreading. Vanessa's smirk faltered, her eyes narrowing, but Emily didn't stop. "Funny thing," Emily continued, her tone light but lethal. "I heard you used to work here. Before you, well, let's just say, before you made some poor choices, like stealing from the hotel, and from him, a desperate act to fund a life you thought you deserved, one you believed Lucas could never provide." She nodded toward Lucas, her grip on his hand tightening. "Not very classy, is it? But I guess that's why you're here with..." She glanced at Damien, her expression turning razor thin. "Someone who matches your standards." Vanessa's face flushed, her composure cracking as the crowd whispered, their judgment turning on her. Damien shifted, his smirk fading as he avoided the crowd's stares, his confidence crumbling. He'd always relied on Vanessa's charm to shield his own insecurities, but now that shield was gone. Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes darting to the onlookers now murmuring about her past. Her dirty secrets laid bare by a woman she'd underestimated. Lucas stared at Emily, his eyes wide, a mix of gratitude and disbelief crossing his face. Her hand in his seemed like a lifeline, pulling him from the darkness Vanessa had dragged him into years ago. The humiliation that had haunted him since her betrayal loosened its grip, just a fraction, but enough for him to breathe. He squeezed Emily's hand, a silent thank you, and she glanced at him, her expression softening, a gentle promise in her eyes. But as the crowd dispersed, Vanessa retreating with a scowl, Lucas's relief twisted into something heavier. Emily's act, her bold, fierce defense, had given him a moment of closure, a shield against his past. Yet it also sparked a new fear, one he hadn't expected. What if she too was temporary? What if this glow, this connection, vanished like Vanessa's had? He looked at Emily, her face glowing with a gentle triumph, and the conflict settled deep in his chest, a fragile hope warring with the scars of betrayal. The gallows noise faded as Lucas and Emily slipped through a side door, the heavy wood muffling the clink of glasses and the hum of voices. The rooftop garden of the Grand Reverie stretched before them, a sanctuary of twinkling string lights and blooming jasmine, the city skyline a glittering backdrop against the night sky. The air was cool, carrying the scent of flowers and freedom, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension of the ballroom. Lucas's steps crunched softly on the gravel path, his suit jacket unbuttoned now, his face distant. Emily walked beside him, her black dress swaying with each step, her auburn hair loose again, catching the faint glow of the lights. They reached a wrought iron bench overlooking the city, the view expansive and serene. Emily sat first, her hands smoothing the dress over her knees, her face reflecting the lights as she glanced at Lucas. He stood for a moment, his shoulders squared against the night, then sat beside her, leaving a careful distance between them. The silence stretched, heavy with the weight of what had just happened. Emily's bold defense, Vanessa's humiliation, the crowd's whispers still echoing in his mind. "You didn't have to do that," Lucas said finally, his voice low, rougher than he intended. He stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, his fingers flexing with a restless energy he couldn't shake. "Back there, with Vanessa." Emily turned to him, her expression soft but unyielding. "I wanted to," she said, her voice steady, cutting through the night air. "She had no right to talk to you like that, to make you feel small." She paused, her hands twisting together, a nervous knot. "I know what that feels like. I couldn't just stand there." Lucas's eyes shifted to her, searching her face. Her words stirred something deep, a spark of warmth within him he'd been fighting since she'd stumbled into his suite. But with that warmth came fear, sharp and familiar. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his hands clasping together as if to steady himself. "You don't even know me," he said, his tone quieter now, almost a challenge. "Why do you care?" Emily's lips parted, a flicker of hurt crossing her face, but she didn't look away. "Because I see you," she said, her voice softer but no less firm. "You act like you've got everything together, Mr. CEO, big fancy hotel, but you're hurting. I know what that looks like. I've been there." She tilted her head, her features catching the light, and for a moment Lucas couldn't breathe. He looked away, his eyes dropping to the gravel at his feet, the small stones glinting under the string lights. Her words hit too close, peeling back layers he'd spent years building. Vanessa's betrayal had left him hollow, a man who trusted no one, who kept the world at arm's length. But Emily, she saw through it, saw him, and that terrified him. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, the confession raw. "Let someone in. Not after her." Emily nodded, her expression softening, a gentle understanding in her eyes. She shifted closer, the bench creaking faintly, her knee brushing his, a small, grounding touch. "I get it," she said, her voice gentle like a melody. "My ex, he made me feel like I'd never be enough. I thought if I loved him harder, he'd stay. But he didn't." She laughed, a small broken sound, and looked out at the skyline, her hands stilling. "I'm scared too, you know, of being unlovable, of messing this up, whatever this is." She thought of Ethan, his cruel words echoing. "You're too clingy." But here, with Lucas, she realized she didn't need to prove her worth to anyone. She was enough, just as she was. Accepting her own value was the first step to healing, and Emily understood that she didn't need anyone's validation. She'd always been enough, right from the start. Lucas turned to her, his eyes wide, the vulnerability in her words mirroring his own. The distance between them felt smaller now, the night air wrapping around them like a cocoon. He wanted to reach for her, to close the gap, but his fear held him back, a tether he couldn't break. Instead, he spoke, his voice low, steady. "You're not unlovable," he said, the words a subtle truth. You're more than enough. Emily's breath caught, a tear slipping down her cheek, but her expression lit up, genuinely lit up. Thank you, she whispered, wiping her face with her sleeve, smudging the last of her mascara. She took a shaky breath, her hands steadying, and looked at him. Can I tell you something about my dad? Lucas nodded, his shoulders loosening slightly, his hands unclenching. Of course, he said, his voice softer now, inviting her in. He had this dream, Emily began, her voice growing steadier as she spoke, her look bright with purpose, a subtle fire in her demeanor. He wanted to start a program for kids who couldn't afford to learn about hospitality. Kids like he was, growing up with nothing. He thought if they had a chance, they could make a life like he did. He never got to do it, but I've always wanted to make that happen, for him. She'd spent years unsure of her own path in hospitality, but now she saw a way to honor her father by working alongside those kids, guiding them as he once guided her. She looked at Lucas, her determination evident. Lucas stared at her, his throat tightening, the fear of betrayal clawing at him, Vanessa's ghost whispering doubts. But Emily's eyes, steady and warm, held no trace of deceit. She wasn't Vanessa. She was here, real, her dream a bridge he could cross if he dared. Trusting again after such pain was the hardest thing Lucas had ever done. But he realized that holding on to fear would only cost him the chance to find happiness again, a lesson Vanessa could never have taught him. He reached out, his hand resting on hers, the touch tentative but warm. The simple act of holding her hand here, away from prying eyes, felt like a small victory over his fears, a step toward the openness he longed for. His phone buzzed, a message from a mutual acquaintance. Vanessa had left the city, Damien trailing behind, his pride shattered. He'd followed her for status but now saw her as a liability, already planning to distance himself and rebuild his image elsewhere. She, meanwhile, retreated in shame, her dreams of grandeur shattered, left to face the consequences of her choices alone. Lucas exhaled, the last shadow of her betrayal lifted. Her greed had been her downfall, a stark reminder to Lucas that her betrayal was her loss, not his. He perceived the weight of that debt to Thomas Carter, a gentle force pulling him toward action. We can make that happen, he said, his voice steady. I promise. For him, for you. Emily's expression brightened further, her hand turning under his, their fingers lacing together, the city lights blurring through the tears in her eyes. The night held them there, two broken people finding something whole in each other, a soft reckoning under the stars. The Grand Reverie's ballroom felt different now, its chandeliers casting a softer glow over the small gathering. It was late afternoon, the golden light of May 16, 2025, filtering through the windows, lighting the faces of the hospitality students seated in rows. Lucas stood at the podium, his suit a simpler gray, the top button undone, a small sign of the walls he'd let fall. His green eyes scanned the room, steady but warm, a subtle pride in them as he adjusted the microphone. Beside him, Emily stood, her auburn hair swept into a loose braid, her hazel eyes bright with emotion. She wore a cream blouse and skirt, her locket catching the light, a piece of her father always with her. Lucas cleared his throat, his hands resting gently on the podium. We're here today to honor a man who believed in the power of hospitality, he began, his voice clear, carrying across the room. Thomas Carter, a former manager of this hotel, dedicated his life to making people feel safe, welcome, seen. He saved my grandfather's life once, a story I only recently learned, a story that reminded me of the lessons he taught me about honor and gratitude, lessons I'd forgotten until now. But his legacy has lived on in ways I never imagined. He glanced at Emily, her expression wide with joy, and she returned it, her fingers brushing the locket, her face shimmering with tears. The students applauded softly, their faces a mix of awe and gratitude. Lucas continued, his tone steady but infused with a glow he'd once thought he'd lost. In his memory, we're establishing the Thomas Carter Scholarship Fund to support young people who dream of a future in hospitality but lack the means to get there. This is for you, to build the kind of life Thomas believed in. It's a way to continue the magic we saw in this place, a magic that brought us together and gave us a new beginning. Lucas had insisted she co-found the fund, a partnership that felt like the perfect way to honor her father's dream together. The applause grew, a wave of sound that filled the room, but Lucas's focus stayed on Emily. She stepped forward, her voice softer but no less powerful as she spoke into the microphone. My dad would have loved this, she said, her words wavering slightly, her expression wide with joy. Her voice broke, a sob catching in her throat, but she laughed through it, the sound pure and free. For the first time since his death, she felt she'd made him proud. Not by being perfect, but by being here, helping others the way he always had. She thought of the gala, how she'd found the courage to stand up for Lucas, a strength she hadn't known she had until that moment. She looked at Lucas, her look holding his, a gentle thank you passing between them. She'd already started planning how she'd mentor the scholarship recipients, a role that seemed like a true continuation of her father's work. She realized that by helping others find their strength, she was proving Ethan wrong. She was more than enough, and her worth could lift others up too. She envisioned a future where she could work alongside Lucas at the Grand Reverie, turning her father's dream into a lifelong mission to make the hotel a beacon for those who needed a chance, just as it had been for her. The crowd clapped again, and Lucas stepped back, his hand finding Emily's, their fingers lacing together as they moved to the side of the stage. The students rose, some wiping tears, others whispering excitedly about their futures. Clara, Lucas's assistant, stood at the back, her usual stern face softened with a rare smile, nodding at Lucas as if to say she'd known he'd find his way. She'd seen the spark of change in him that night at the gala, a hope she'd held on to for years finally coming to life. She looked forward to supporting him in this new chapter, her loyalty unwavering as they rebuilt the hotel's spirit together. He glanced at the students, then at Clara, realizing he'd been untouchable for too long, hiding behind his title. Now he wanted to lead with the same openness he'd found with Emily, a leader Thomas Carter would have respected. Some of the staff in the crowd exchanged glances, their usual wariness replaced with a cautious admiration. They'd never seen him so unguarded, so human. But above all, he wanted to be someone Emily could be proud of, a partner walking alongside her on a journey they'd both once thought impossible. "I'm proud of you," Emily said, her voice low, meant only for him. She squeezed his hand, her touch grounding, and Lucas felt the last of his fear slip away. He'd spent years hiding from love, from betrayal, but here, with her, he was stepping into the light. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said, his voice quiet, raw. He turned to her, his eyes softened, unguarded, the man he'd been before Vanessa finally emerging. You gave me a reason to try again." Emily's expression glowed, a tear slipping down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away this time. "We're a good team," she said, her voice a melody, her hand tightening in his. Lucas nodded, his arm tightening around her. They'd both been broken, both feared love's sting, but together they were learning, step by step, day by day. The road ahead wasn't clear, but it was theirs. Lucas realized that trusting Emily had shown him love wasn't a risk to fear, but a gift to cherish, a subtle truth he'd never have discovered alone. Vanessa's betrayal had once defined his fears, but now it was a distant memory, overshadowed by the love he'd found. Lucas pulled her closer, his arm slipping around her shoulders, a public gesture he'd once never dared. The crowd noticed, a few smiles spreading, but Lucas didn't care. He was done hiding. Emily leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder, her braid brushing his jacket. The scholarship was a beginning, for the students, for Thomas's legacy, for them. It wasn't perfect, and healing never would be, but it was shared, and that was enough. They realized healing wasn't about erasing every scar. It was about learning to walk together, carrying those scars as marks of courage and love, a gentle triumph under the golden light of a new day. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that hope can be found in the most surprising moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heartwarming Love Story. We bring you stories that touch the soul, renew your belief in kindness, and highlight what's truly important in life.